So why should every real estate professional have a preferred notary? A real estate transaction, we could liken it to a team relay race. The realtor gets things out of the gate, working hard to find a motivated buyer or seller, patiently walking their client through the process. And then if it's a buyer's transaction, they're not paying cash in this case, a lender must be involved. The realtor hands the baton off to the loan officer, so to speak. The loan officer then exerts themselves to find a product that fits the buyer's needs, shuffling all sorts of things around to make everything work. When everything is ready to close, the baton then gets handed off to the title agency, the escrow officer. They check for liens, they provide insurance, they collect and handle funds before ultimately they get everything recorded with the county. So hours and hours of effort and preparation go into each and every transaction from multiple players, the real estate agent, the loan officer, the title company. But before it can get recorded, who is the last leg in the race? The baton gets handed to the notary. Yep, someone like me. So we're real estate professionals here. We've probably all heard of horror stories. Maybe even we've been the victim in some cases. I've talked with folks and they've said, yeah, I remember such and such time when I lost a deal because the notary totally messed up the documents. The interest rate lock expired that day. Everything would have had to be redone. The buyers didn't want to start the process over because interest rates had risen since then. And they didn't want to take on that financial liability. Do situations like this happen often? They really don't, but they do happen. So why risk it? That's lost commission, that's lost business for everybody. And even though you weren't the notary that made the actual mistake, it makes you look bad. In a situation like this, the whole team looks terrible because the deal was botched, just because of the notary's mistake. So why would you leave it to chance? It would give a whole lot more peace of mind to you if you knew precisely who the notary was on every single one of your deals. You ought to know that that person will show up on time, that they're going to dress professionally, they've got a pleasant demeanor, they're a professional extension of you, they should be knowledgeable and able to explain all the documents and execute them to the T. Now, if you're a realtor, think about it. You already have a go-to title agency, an escrow officer that you always go to. You already have a loan officer that you always go to for every transaction, and vice versa. So most of the team is already assembled. The notary might seem insignificant. I hear it all the time. Oh, you're just the notary. Yeah, I guess I'm just the notary. But the notary is the last leg. They finish the race. You better make sure that your notary is competent to the extent that they cross that finish line every single time. Your reputation is on the line, your commission is on the line. So you have to find a superstar notary and add them to your team. When people tell me those terrible stories of deals going sour because of the notary's mistakes, I often ask them, okay, did you know that notary? Did you pick them? And they always say no. They'll say something like, what do you mean, pick them? That's the title company's responsibility. That's a wrong assumption, everyone. If you're a realtor, a loan officer, a builder, an investor, doing all these deals, and it doesn't even matter if you are any of those people. You could be a first-time home buyer, and that could be your last home that you ever buy. You have the power to call the escrow officer and say, hey, this is my transaction. You're going to use Billy Bob Joe, my notary, for the transaction. You're going to call him. You're going to email him and give him this signing. And as long as Billy Bob Joe doesn't have any financial interest or family ties, and as long as Billy Bob Joe goes through whatever application process the title agency might have and has the required credentials, the required errors and omissions insurance, then the title agency will absolutely grant your request and assign you that notary. Surprisingly, even top producing realtors and loan officers, builders, investors, very few of them know that this is a service that they can choose. They don't know that they can pick their notary to add to their team. And that's why I'm here today telling you that you absolutely can. That's a service you can choose. And that covers realtors, loan officers, builders, investors. I just wanted to address title companies quickly, specifically. Escrow officers, they already have a few notaries that they lean on. And most of the time, they're absolutely spectacular. They're dependable. Most escrow officers already have notaries on their team, and that's great. You should. Where things go wrong often, and how these horror stories become possible in the first place, is when, let's say, a particular title company has some kind of contract or deal with a signing service. So really quick, if you don't know what a signing service is, a signing service just acts as a middleman between the title company and the notary. So a title company will send out an order to the signing service. Hey, signing service, use one of your notaries to get this done. The signing service will then send out a mass notification via text or email to maybe 20, 30, 50 notaries. Hey, notary, can you be here at this time? We'll pay you this much. And then you can either say yes or no. One of those notaries is going to end up accepting the signing. The problem is you don't know who that notary is. And that is where the bad notaries are able to slip through the cracks. It provides opportunity to where things could go very wrong. So what do you do if you are an escrow officer and your title company has this contract with a specific signing service that you have to go through? Most escrow officers do know this, but I've talked to some that it just never dawned on them. Even if you do have to go through a signing service, when you talk to the scheduler about the order that you're giving them, request that your preferred notary get first right of refusal before the signing service sends out that mass notification to every notary in the area. That's what you would want to do to make sure you get someone you can depend on. So at this point, we know why we should have a preferred notary. We need someone we can count on to finish the race reliably for the transaction every time, while representing you as the escrow officer, the realtor, the loan officer, the builder, the investor in a professional manner. The notary is an extension of all the parties involved. They have to be on your level of professionalism and competence. And we also learned how to make sure we get our preferred notary to be used on the transaction. And it's very simple. You make the request to the escrow officer at the title company, call them, email them, text them, whatever your preferred method of communication is. Hey, this is my notary that I like to use. You're going to get in touch with them to get this signing done. The question now is, well, okay, who in the world should be my preferred notary? How do I find this superstar notary to add to my team? I suppose you could use trial and error. You could just try a bunch of notaries and see who's good, stick with them. That's a strategy, I suppose. But again, it leaves things open to chance. Eventually, you might find someone that's excellent, but you might go through a lot of really bad experiences to get to that point that cost you with frustration. They might hurt your reputation a bit. They might make you lose out on commissions because they totally messed up deals. We don't want any of that. So how do you find a superstar notary to add to your team? Well, if you're in Phoenix, look no further. Maybe you already have a rockstar notary, and that's awesome. But you should always have a backup, even a backup to the backup. Great notaries, they get booked very quickly. They have full schedules. They're not able to take every single signing that you send their way. So you should have a few backups to make sure you are covered in every situation. So I would love the opportunity to earn your business and get a chance to join your team, even if that means just every once in a while when your starting notary is on vacation or has a flat tire, they're already booked, whatever the reason might be. Now, social proof for that for evidence. And I'm going to show you some reviews that kind of explain why you should use me. Even if you're not in Phoenix, you don't get transactions in Phoenix, This will at least help you to identify what to look for in a notary, and that'll help you find a notary that's worth using. So let me try and share my screen here. Hey. Saturday, 7 p.m. in Sun City. So the time is terrible, the day is terrible, the location is terrible, but I did it because, hey, this is a team sport. I'm going to do whatever I need to do to get the deal done. So that's what you want to look for in a notary. There's too many notaries that just want to take the convenient signings that are easy to get to and are convenient for them. Here's another signing I recently did just a couple of weeks ago. Same kind of thing. This is on a Sunday, 11 a.m. in Buckeye. That's about an hour away from me. Where else would you want to be on a Sunday morning, right? But yeah, that's what you want to look for in a notary. Someone who's willing to go the extra mile, literally, to get deals done for everybody. And then here's some reviews I've gotten. So what do we got here? I'll just quickly sum this up. So this is a review that was sent to the escrow officer after one of my signings. The signer said Skylar's professional. He was prepared. He was organized. He had a calm demeanor. He knew every document and how to explain it. He didn't make you feel rushed. He wasn't impatient. And he let me read the documents. This is the best experience I've ever had in signing documents. And I attribute that directly to Skylar. So if you ever get a review like that, keep using that notary. Here's another text I got not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago. The escrow officer, I've done hundreds of transactions for her. She says, I've never had any funding conditions where the closing was delayed when you've been the notary. Again, that's what you want to hear. That's going to give you peace of mind that the notary is going to get it done correctly so that everyone gets paid on time and everyone gets into their home on time or out of their home on time and on to their next place. Kate says, I make her smile. That's nice. I always get great feedback when you do any of my signings. Another thing you should look for with a notary, I like to do this. I always tell the escrow officer, but also I like to tell the realtor and the loan officer after the signing, hey, everything went good. You can take a deep breath. Because realtors and loan officers, they are kind of anxious on closing day. They want to make sure everything went good so that they can get paid. So I like to give realtors and loan officers that assurance once it's over with. Now, I did mention that notaries can help realtors' businesses, loan officers' businesses, and title companies' businesses. How? How would a notary do that? All we do is sign papers, right? This is a picture that I took a couple weeks ago of a family once we finished their signing on their new home. I like to take pictures of the family afterward and then post it on social media, and I tag the realtor, the loan officer, the escrow officer, if they do have an Instagram. Will that lead directly to getting business for you? It might not, but at worst, it at least gives you some sort of omnipresence on Instagram. It supports your reputation at worst. And then also, this is a review I left for a title company I do a lot of work with. Again, will leaving a review on someone's Google business page, will that lead directly to new business? It may not, but it might. But at worst, it helps support your reputation. And then lastly, I don't believe that people use me because I give them treats and money. I believe I get used because I do a good job. I'm error-free, and I'm a good professional extension of them. But I do have a pretty sweet gig. I drive around town, I get signatures, I meet cool people, I go to beautiful places. If your notary isn't showing you gratitude, I just think they're a terrible person, actually. And so here's a gift card that I gave to an escrow officer recently, and I always like to share cookies every once in a while from Crumble Cookies. That's my favorite place to go. And people always enjoy that. So those are some things that you want to look for with a notary. And now if you're not in Phoenix, and you can't use me, but you're like, hey, I want a preferred notary. What should you do? I'm going to share my screen, my browser. So this is what I would do if I lived in a different city than Phoenix and I wanted a preferred notary. I would just type in SnapDocs, find notary. Put whatever zip code that you're in. I'm going to put in 12302. That is where I grew up, in the Albany, New York area, Schenectady area. Okay, SnapDocs has a pretty good algorithm. So whoever's on this first page, that just tells me that they've done a lot of signings. Their credentials are up to date. They know what they're doing. They respond on time. They must have good reviews. That's how SnapDocs algorithm works. So I would just, if I was a real estate professional in New York and I needed a notary, I would try Lisa first and give her a call. Okay. Well, that is it for me.